Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, true crime, cosy crime and wayward girls. It's my weekly wrap-up. So it's been an enjoyably varied reading week for me this week. I've got 3 books that I finished to talk to you about and a couple of things that are ongoing, both of which I'm really enjoying. But before I talk about the books, I just wanted to reflect quickly on the crime fiction event I went to last weekend. So if you watched this video last Saturday, you'll know that I said I was going to something called Fatal Shore, which is a crime fiction event that's held every year in the town that I live in. This is the first year I'd been, so I think it was the 3rd one. But yeah, the first time I've managed to go. But I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was a really packed day with some great authors, just talking about crime fiction. So there were, I think, 5 or 6 panels during the day, each one with about 3 or 4 different writers on it, talking about different aspects of crime fiction. So there was one that talked about like historical fiction. There was one that was where the panel was made up of authors who'd previously written in different genres and had moved over to crime. Loads of really interesting stuff and loads of authors who I hadn't heard of before or had heard of but hadn't read. I managed to restrain myself and only bought 1 book at the event, but it's one I'm really looking forward to reading. But I think there are many authors there whose work I will probably pick up at some point. Probably the best known authors who were there were Peter James, author of the Roy Grace books, who's locally lives in Brighton. So he talked at length about the Roy Grace books, about his career, and that was really interesting. And he's a very entertaining speaker as well. And probably the other best known author was Ruth Ware, who was really interesting to hear talk, and talked a lot about her new book One Perfect Couple. So yeah, a really enjoyable event. I had a great time. It was a bit out of my comfort zone. I don't always go to things like this, or I hadn't really been to fairly big things like this before. But I really, really enjoyed it, and will definitely be doing it again next year. Anyway, right, let's talk about what I've been reading this week then. So I'll talk about what I've read, and then at the end of the video I'll talk about what's been on the channel and what's coming on the channel. So in terms of things I finished this week then, so I think I was reading this last week when I made this video. So this is What We Talk About When We Talk About Crime by Jennifer Fleetwood. This was excellent. I really, really like this book. So this is a series of essays by Jennifer Fleetwood about different aspects of crime, like kind of about how we report on crime in the press, but also how crime is discussed generally in society, how it bleeds into other forms of like the media. So things like true crime books and podcasts and TV shows and things like that. So she takes a number of different, like really high profile cases, most of which I think would be very well known to people in the UK, but maybe less well known outside the UK. So there's a chapter about the athlete Mo Farah. There's one about Myra Hindley. There's one about Prince Andrew and the allegations that were made against Prince Andrew. Really, really interesting. Just how personal narratives come to shape our understanding as a society of crime, and how personal narratives are really important in terms of building that understanding of crime, but also how they are always subjective. They are always that one person's interpretation of events and their role in events. Really, really very interesting indeed. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I think I'm probably going to do a review on it where I talk about this book, but also just reflect on the importance of the crime genre generally. So fictional crime as well as as well as our discussion of real life crime. So yeah, an excellent book and one I definitely recommend. Next up then, I read another crime book, but very different. So I read Agatha Raisen and The Vicious Vet by MC Beaton. So this is the second of the Agatha Raisen books. Much like the first, quite silly, quite cosy, but very entertaining. So Agatha Raisen is this slightly abrasive woman who ran a successful PR agency in London and has now retired to Norfolk, lives in the countryside in a small town. In this one, there is a local vet who Agatha thinks is quite dishy, who she has to go and see because of her cats, and then he ends up dying and she ends up investigating his murder. just a fun mystery novel. They're not brilliant, they're not the best mysteries ever, but there's just something very appealing about the way that they're written and like the general coziness of them. They're quite funny. They, the mysteries are good enough to keep you interested, but it's more just the vibe of these books that's entertaining. So I've got a stack more of them. I've no doubt I will continue reading them. After that then, so the third and final book I finished this week was a book that comes out next year in January. I was very happy that the publisher offered to send me an advance copy of it. It is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I want to save my thoughts for my review video, which I will be putting up sometime in January, just before the book comes out, to time with the release date. But I really liked it. It's a bit too long. My kind of high level summary is it's a little bit longer than it needed to be. This edition is 480 pages. Probably could have been under 400 pages. It's a bit messy in the middle in particular. I really like the start of this book and I love the end of this book, but the middle is definitely a little bit messy. And the integration of the horror elements into the overall story wasn't perfect either. But overall, I really liked it. It's very emotional at times. There are some decent scenes of horror. It tells the story basically, so it's set in 1970, and it tells the story of a group of young women and teenage girls, all of whom are pregnant, who are sent to this home to get them away from like people gossiping about them and things like that, to get them away from the shame that their families feel because of the fact that they're young and unmarried and pregnant. So they go to this home in Florida where they basically wait until they're ready to give birth, and then they give birth and their children are taken away and given up for adoption. So it's a hard-hitting subject, and I thought Grady Hendrix's treatment of that subject and the characterisation of the different girls was really, really well done. It's some of the horror elements I didn't think were quite so well done, but overall I really liked it a lot. And it did make me cry at the end, I have to say. So that's what I finished in terms of currently reading. And so I'm still listening to the audiobook of Shogun by James Clavell. I'm 42% through now. It's really, really long. That's my overwhelming feeling about that book, is it's just really long. But I am really enjoying it. What I'm enjoying, there's two parts to this book. There's the part that is about John Blackthorne, this English sailor who's washed up in Japan. There's a part about him like integrating himself into Japanese society, the different characters he meets, the kind of culture clash side of it, if you like. So there's that side of the book, and then there's another side of the book which is kind of the political intrigue and strategy and war and stuff like that. The John Blackthorne culture clash side of the book is much better, in my opinion, or much more interesting to me personally than the other half of the book. So when it gets into these kind of political strategy type parts of the book, I switch off, and not switch off, I don't enjoy them as much, but the John Blackthorne culture clash parts of the book are really gripping, really enjoyable, quite funny at times, and just interesting. So I am enjoying it. I will continue reading it or listening to it, and I've no doubt I'll finish it, but I don't think I'm going to finish it in October. The other thing I'm reading, which I've just started this morning, is The Bone Key by Sarah Monette. So to give it its full title, it's The Bone Key, The Necromantic Mysteries of Carl Murchison Booth. So this is a series of short stories, very kindly sent to me by Heidi, one of my viewers, so thank you again, Heidi. So a series of short stories about this guy, Carl Murchison Booth, who is an occult detective. I finished the first story, which was great, really creepy, really inventive, has a really nice kind of classic vibe to it. Now, about halfway through the second story, which is called The Venibretti Necklace, which is a bit longer, but again has a nice, creepy, mysterious feel to it. So I'm enjoying this enormously. I've not read anything by Sarah Monette before. I can definitely see myself reading more by her. She's really good at just building atmosphere. There's a little bit of humour in these books, but mostly it's about the creepy atmosphere and the kind of inventiveness of the horror. So yeah, enjoying it enormously. So in terms of channel stuff then, And obviously this will probably be my final book for Occult Detective October, I think. So the final week of Occult Detective October is Anything Goes. This definitely fits that. Well, anything would, but this definitely fits that. So yeah, I think this will be my final book for Occult Detective October. But I've really enjoyed reading some occult detective fiction this month, and if you've been taking part, hopefully you have too. Do let me know in the comments. So in terms of channel stuff, then, so in the last week you've had my reaction video to the announcement of the Kindle Coloursoft, their new colour e-reader, which I'm not terribly impressed by. You had my announcement for the Read What You Own challenge that starts on November the 5th this year. An easy date to remember, always an easy date to remember if you're in the UK because of Bonfire Night, an easy date to remember if you're in the US this year as well because of Election Day. So yes, we will be kicking that off again this year. I will be reading 100 books I already own before buying any new ones. Loads of people seem to be interested in taking part. I had loads of comments on that video and a load of new people joining my Discord to discuss their Read What You Own challenges. So yeah, if you are taking part and you're not a member of my Discord, there'll be a link in the description to this video. It's a great place just to hang out, and particularly if you're doing a challenge like Read What You Own, to be able to talk with other people who are doing the challenge. So yes, so my announcement video for that, I did a review of the book In the Blink of an Eye by Joe Callahan. I thought Joe Callahan was going to be at this Fatal Shore event. I'm sure one of the pre-press release type things they sent out about it said she was going to be on one of the panels. She wasn't there, so I read In the Blink of an Eye in preparation for going to the event. And I'm glad I read it because it was an interesting book in many ways, although I did have some problems with it, which I'll talk about in my review. But yeah, Joe Callahan was not there in the end. So anyway, so yes, that review of that, I'm losing my words today. My review of that book, and then also you've got a video I did where I look at the I think it was 78 most popular horror books on Goodreads from the last 5 years, and just talk about the ones that I've read basically, which again people seem to have quite enjoyed. So yeah, if you're into horror, do check out that video if you haven't seen it. So that's what's been on the channel. In terms of what's going to be on the channel in the week ahead, I'm going to do a video. So I've done a few videos talking about giving up Kindles. I'm going to do a video talking specifically about what it's been like to move from using Kindle to using Kobo. So a number of people have asked me about that, so I'll do a video on that. I'm going to do a book haul video, so I've had a few books come in recently. I'm going to do my review of what we talk about when we talk about crime, and then I'm going to also do my TBR for October. So yeah, if you fancy any of those, look out for them coming up this week. Anyway, I will leave it there. Do let me know what you've been reading this week. Hope you've had fantastic reading weeks. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.